Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Our first story today comes from Australia, where one woman and her service dog ran into a Karen who somehow made it to adulthood without learning that service animals exist. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Karen learns the hard way what a service dog is. I, 22-year-old female, have multiple disabilities, including mobility problems, vision impairment, and autism. As a result, I have a service dog, a golden lab who's my best friend in the whole world and goes literally everywhere with me. My dad, 53-year-old male, is pretty protective when it comes to me facing discrimination. He used to be in the Air Force, left when he met my mom. Combine that with him being of Scottish descent, and he can be quite the papa bear, as my school learned the hard way, but that's another story. So this one day, me, my dad, and my mom are at this big box store. Mom's talking to the staff member about a piece of furniture she's after, and me, my dad, and my doggo are trailing behind. I'm having a relatively good mobility day, so I'm using doggo to keep my balance. Enter Karen. Out of nowhere, Karen approaches, looking down her nose at me, and "Doggo, what does it do?" she asks, her tone condescending. Me, being autistic with massive social anxiety on top, I immediately clam up, and Doggo puts herself between me and Karen, pressing against my legs like she's trained to do. Karen repeats herself, slower this time, like annoyingly slow. My dad steps in, just in front of Doggo and I. "She's a service dog," he said. Hearing the protective tone in my dad's voice, Mom turns around. "What for?" Karen asks. "Vision impairment and mobility issues," Dad replied. "Not that it's any of your business." "I've never heard of a service dog," Karen sneers. "Well, you've been living under a rock then," Dad retorts. By this time, Mom's made her way back over and is standing at my side. The staff member's also nearby, giving Karen a sort of "keep going and you'll be asked to leave" look. Karen huffs and walks off. "I was just curious," she mutters under her breath. It wasn't the first time, and I know it won't be the last. But the "never heard of a service dog" comment's what really makes this story stand out for me. Edit. A few things for clarification. 1, I'm in Australia, so our version of the ADA is the Disability Discrimination Act. Service dog rights are covered under Section 9, and believe me, my dad has it practically memorized. And also saved on his phone for people who don't believe him. 2, my doggo was trained by the same people who do the guide dogs here, and their Labradors do have a bit of retriever in them. Also, doggo is a darker gold color, more like a toasted marshmallow than your classic yellow. 3, yes, my doggo wears a harness and has her own registration ID card on it. What did she mean by "what does it do"? I assume she was asking for, specific tasks it can complete for you, like retrieving items or crossing streets. But if she's never heard of a service dog, what's her question? Does she think it can ride a skateboard or walk on top of a big ball? What a weird question in this entire context. And our second story. "You're done here, Billy, and leave your badge with the receptionist." I stood in the hallway with a cardboard box, movie prop perfect, coffee mug, notebook, tiny cactus, flash drive, and looked at Eric Lawson's practiced smile. He had the smooth haircut, the wet asphalt suit, and the last name that opened doors in this building. He'd been parachuted in as project sponsor a week before launch. 24 hours before the board presentation, the company announced restructuring. The only position eliminated? Mine. "Nothing personal, just business," he said, nudging my box toward the elevator with his polished shoe. 2 months later, I came back to the same floor and walked into a different office, the one with the wall of glass and a view across Dallas. The plaque on the door said Chief Operating Officer. At the coffee machine, Eric raised a paper cup as if to toast me, then glanced down at my badge, Billy Carter, COO. He looked away first. Before the glass office, there was the background noise of a life lived on a budget. I grew up on the edge of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a house where the AC rattled louder than the TV, and we kept duct tape next to the remote because something was always cracked. My older sister, Hannah, 5 years up on me, became the mom on the day our father slammed the front door and the hallway plaster dusted down like fake snow. My kid brother Alex trailed 2 years behind me with sticky hands and eyes like black buttons. When he looked at you, you gave him the last roll, whether you meant to or not. Mom loved us in a way that didn't pay the bills. She rotated through night shifts and bad bosses, always promising next week would be easier. I learned early you can't count on miracles or gift horses. At 14, I was pushing grocery pallets. At 16, washing cars in a lot off Admiral Place. By 18, I could fix a microwave, coax a 10-year-old Dell to boot, and weld a bracket without setting the garage on fire. I picked industrial logistics in community college because it sounded like the opposite of chaos, then transferred to Oklahoma State to finish the degree. Days were classes, evenings were cinder block warehouses, nights were Excel forums and Reddit threads about doing things Excel can't do. I almost quit school for a full-time paycheck. Then Hannah married Greg. Quiet voice, level gaze, an entire personality that said, I show up. His parents owned a small chain of auto shops up in Kansas. It's an investment, his dad told me when they helped with tuition, in a kid who pulls other people up. I nodded and looked away because my throat locked up the same way Alex's used to when a toy snapped. After graduation, a classmate, Jake Martin, pulled me into the big leagues. His dad was a co-investor in NordServe US, a logistics and service outfit with headquarters in Dallas and warehouses sprinkled across the Midwest. I landed in the service department as a junior analyst, the lowest rung that still saw the whole machine. It was the American bloodstream, parts moving between Des Moines and Wichita, technicians rolling out at dawn, spreadsheets carrying million-dollar decisions like spider webs hold dew. 3 years in, we got bought. New people arrived with the same smiles and laminated KPI scorecards. 2/3 of the org chart disappeared. Somehow, I stayed. Maybe because my tables didn't bleed red and my resume had no gaping holes. The work doubled, the pay crawled a notch, and I started doing the math that managers claim they do. What a late shipment actually costs. How much a tech's idle hour really burns. What happens when you route a van by eye and pretend Oklahoma has no traffic, no temperature limits, no windows customers expect you to hit? By year 6, my business card said Deputy Chief Engineer, which sounds small until you realize it's a skeleton key to the whole service network. That's when the picture stopped being bolts and became a system. And the system looked like Swiss cheese with American ambition. Holes everywhere, and each one expensive. We ran by grandpa rules. Parts wandered across states, slow and pricey. Warehouses bulged with items that failed once a year and ran empty of the bits that broke weekly. Vans carried air more often than inventory. Techs loaded just in case, which meant the only case they didn't have was the one they needed. It wasn't anyone's fault. It was everyone's habit. So I sketched a fix, first on paper, then in code, layered over our ancient database. Some VBA that should be illegal, a light REST service on a closet server, a few messy Python scripts. I called it Spine, a backbone to stitch together inventory, failure forecasts, routing, and tech schedules. No magic, failure statistics, compatibility matrices, mileage and climate factors, cold chain rules, plus real route optimization with time windows that meant something. I piloted it at night on Oklahoma data. I bribed Mike, the Tulsa warehouse lead, with good coffee to count the stuff for real, not off the sheet. Within a month, trucks stopped hauling air. 2 months later, we closed a billing cycle with 0 late penalties. For the first time in longer than anyone could remember, a field tech opened a kit and found the exact bolt he needed. Word leaked, first to our floor, then to the department, then up the chain where words aren't supposed to leak, only descend. That was when Eric Lawson connected himself to the initiative. He slid a hand across the back of my chair. You get this, Billy. Projects like this have to be curated at the executive level. Great, I said. Budget and team for rollout. He smiled, the smile you see on billboards. You're not hearing me. I'm taking sponsorship. You get the chance to prove it works. A chance without levers is an obligation, I said. It's called corporate reality, he said, and winked. I kept building. I kept documenting. I wrote as if I were writing myself out of a job, because I grew up in a house that kept going after a dad walked out. Systems should survive their authors. A week before we were supposed to go live nationwide, we sealed the last leaks. Presentation and release were all that remained. That night, the chief of staff called, 9 a.m. board briefing. Eric wants you there, she said, then added softly, no slides from you, he'll cover it. I made 2 decks anyway, one glossy with pretty arrows and words that executives repeat into microphones. The one I sent to Eric's assistant, the other one told the truth. Dependencies, risks, tight spots, the infrastructure spine needed to breathe, and the list of parts that had to be reserved by region for the next quarter. I put it on a flash drive, emailed it to myself, and sent a copy to Greg. Hold this, I told him on the phone, in case I get hit by a bus tomorrow. You're not the kind of man buses hit, he said, but copy saved. In the boardroom, Eric walked on stage like a man who'd already given the victory interview. Over the last 3 months, my team has built an innovation hub, he said. We're already saving 7% on logistics. He said, so often you'd think he invented the bolt and the wrench. I sat at the back, assigned to Q&A. I answered in sentences, not paragraphs. Heads nodded. An hour later, he called me into a corner office. A termination letter lay neatly on the desk, due to restructuring. Beside it, an assignment sheet naming Eric Lawson as custodian of Project Spine. You did phenomenal work, he said, but the next phase requires a different profile. A profile that can swap names on the title slide, I asked. Don't sour the ending, he replied. You're talented. Someone will snap you up. That's a matter of time, I said, meeting his eyes. And connections, he said, still smiling. I turned in my badge, rode the elevator down, and walked into rain that made Dallas look like a city built of chrome. I didn't talk much for a couple days. Then the call started. Billy, a field supervisor, said, voice tinny on speaker, spine's choking. They moved it to some cloud service Eric's buddies run. Half the validation checks are off. Says it's for speed. The router's sending us across time-restricted roads. Our cold chain jobs are timing out. Who's signing off on disabling checks, I asked. 5 minutes, guys. We need numbers by Friday, he quoted Eric. 2 weeks in, penalties piled up. 3 weeks, SLA sagged and bonuses evaporated. The board asked for what PowerPoint can't pretty up, raw logs, GPS tracks, plan versus actual with customer signatures. Eric sent a gorgeous PDF. The numbers refused to match. The phone call I got didn't come from HR. It came from Richard Lawson, the owner and Eric's uncle. Mr. Carter, he said, his voice flat as a judge's bench, can you come in tomorrow? Bring everything you have on the project? I'll be there today, I said. We met in a conference room that looked like an airport lounge. Richard sat there with our CFO, Catherine Miller, the corporate counsel, Neil Patel, and the outgoing COO, Mr. Luca, who stared at a legal pad like it owed him money. We need to understand where the break is, Richard said. Spine didn't break, I said. It was broken. The documentation is explicit. You can't disable the cold chain windows or the tech handoff timers without cascading delays. What documentation? Patel asked. I put the flash drive on the table, and there's a copy off-site with a third party, I added, in case this one has an accident. We peeled the onion. Architecture diagrams, compatibility matrices, delay heat maps, head-to-head route comparisons, my ugly internal graphs. Beside the cloud vendor's pretty dashboard where half the flags were simply turned off, Catherine leaned in when she saw the cost curve shift. Who authorized the migration to a third-party cloud, she asked. It's in the minutes as friends of the company, I said. They may be, but they don't know service logistics. Why didn't we have all this, Richard asked. Because I was fired the day before launch, I said. The custodian of record was Eric. Continuity was his job. Silence is a tool. Richard let it ring for a beat longer than was comfortable. Patel clicked a pen open and shut. What do you want, Mr. Carter? Richard said at last. To work, I said, and to make it work without me. Title, he asked. COO for a year, full access to service, and the right to choose vendors. I want to rehire a few people we cut because they didn't fit the picture. The picture doesn't work without them. And Eric? Richard asked, no expression. That's your family, sir, I said, your decision, but he should be nowhere near Spine. Richard stood, looked out the window, came back. Tomorrow you present the version that works to the board. If you persuade us, you get what you're asking. I already had 2 versions, I said, the beautiful one and the honest one. I'm showing the honest one. The next morning, I stood on the same stage. The faces were the same, only more awake. I didn't say digital synergy or horizontal scalability. I said customers don't care what we name our system. They want the date we promised, the part that fits, and a tech who shows up inside the window. That's all Spine does. It removes the dumb stuff. My slides were impolite, GPS tracks, plan/actual overlays, heat maps of failures, delay tables before and after. And one photo, Mike in Tulsa grinning with Jay, a field tech, both holding a kit tray with the correct washers in the correct slot for the first time in a month. What's the capex? Catherine asked. Less than 2 months of the penalties we paid for cloud improvements, I said. Restore the validations, route with real windows, reserve regional parts pools, and we'll get back to 9 to 10% savings over last year without grinding down the people. Risks? Patel asked. 1, I said, disabling checks again because our report's due Friday. Richard stood. 2 announcements, he said. First, Billy Carter is appointed Chief Operating Officer for a 1-year term with authority over spine and the service organization. Second, any changes to spine go through his team, no exceptions. Eric sat in the second row, hands folded in a way that made them look like someone else's. He came into my new office without knocking that afternoon. Congratulations, he said, smirking. Fast work. Not fast, I said, long. You just didn't notice people working. Spare me the sermon, he said. What now? Now you choose, I said. There's a role for you reporting to me, external relations, the thing you're actually good at, or you resign. I don't work under, he said. Then you're leaving, I said. No gray market vendors, no access to spine. He studied my face. Be honest, he said. You dreamed of this moment. Honest? I said. I dreamed of a field tech not hauling air. A week later, HR announced that Eric Lawson was departing by mutual agreement. 3 of his friends, men whose actual job had been to airbrush numbers, were let go after an internal review. We rebuilt quietly. I told my assistant to call Mike in Tulsa, Jay in the field, and Jasmine in Wichita, the ones who'd kept the machine moving when the pretty dashboards lied. Come back, I said. We're building a system designed to survive us. We reset the perimeter, local servers for the validation layer, cloud for what cloud does well. We put the cold chain rules back in, updated the compatibility matrices, reestablished regional parts buffers, and turned on a dashboard that wouldn't win any design awards because it only showed what mattered. ETA, stock health, SLA risk. New rule, no slide goes to the board without the raw behind it. Status? Richard asked in a Friday pop-in. Boring, I said. He smiled. In operations, boring is a symphony. Exactly, I said. On a Monday all hands, Jay unmuted. Billy yesterday, I opened the kit, and the exact washers were in the exact bin. I almost cried. Don't cry, Jasmine said. Just clock your calls. I'm clocking, Jay laughed. Mike texted me a photo, shelves neat as graph paper, no half-empty pallets. He wrote, first day in a year I'm not embarrassed by my aisles. Catherine pinged me. Penalties are back to historic lows. Spine is breathing again. Spine doesn't breathe, I typed back. It keeps us from doing dumb things. Slack rained emojis. At night, I stood in the window and called Greg. COO, he said. How's the view? Like someone turned off a permanent hum, I said. You did exactly what we always thought you would, he said. And remember the promise? Make it work without you. I'm writing the transition plan, I said. In a year, I'll hire my replacement. Hannah left a voice note. Little brother, sometimes dads leave, but you became the guy who shows up. Proud of you. Alex dropped a string of emojis in the family chat. 2 months after I'd been told to leave my badge at the desk, I walked the same hallway toward the glass. Eric was by the coffee machine with a banker's box. He glanced up. You win, he said softly. No, I said, the truth won. We stopped lying to ourselves. That's what you call revenge, he asked. I call it work, I said. Try it next time. He went out without looking back. I went to my desk, where the only beautiful things were the boring numbers, and watched Spine do the least glamorous miracle I know. Keep promises. The boomerang of nastiness and punishment came back to the boss with full force. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.